The great crystal towers of Nexus Prime stretched into the purple sky like frozen lightning. For thousands of years, these towers had hosted the most important meetings in the galaxy. Today was no different, except for one thing that would change. Everything inside the largest tower, 43 different alien species, sat in a massive, circular chamber. The room hummed with the sounds of many different languages and the glow of advanced technology. Each species had their own special area designed for their needs. The Vorthok floated in glowing blue pods, filled with special gas. Their bodies looked like jellyfish made of light, and they could read minds without speaking. They had been part of the galaxy for over 10,000 years and thought they were the smartest beings alive. The Krellians sat in heavy metal chairs that could support their huge armored bodies. They looked like walking tanks with 4 arms and skin harder than steel. Their weapons could destroy entire planets, and they had never lost a war in 5,000 years. The Zephyri were the oldest of all. Nobody knew exactly how old they were, but their technology seemed like magic to everyone else. It could make objects appear and disappear, travel through time, and control gravity itself. They barely spoke to the younger species, considering them children. This was the 2847th meeting of the Galactic Council, and they were discussing the same things they always did: trade routes between star systems, arguments over territory, and the ongoing war against the terrible devourers at the edge of the galaxy. Then something unexpected. Warning alarms began to sound. Every species in the room looked up at the giant display screens that showed space around Nexus Prime. Small dots appeared on the screen, moving slowly toward the station. "Unknown vessels approaching," announced the station's computer in a calm voice. The council members looked at each other with confusion. Nobody was supposed to arrive today. All the important species were already here, as the dots got closer. The screen showed something that made many of the aliens laugh out loud. The ships were made of simple metal and were pushed forward by chemical rockets that shot bright flames behind them. Smoke and fire trailed from the engines like the primitive spacecraft that young civilizations used when they first learned to fly. "How amusing," said one of the Vorthok, its thought voice echoing in everyone's mind. Children playing with fire sticks. A massive Krellian general slammed his 4 fists on his metal desk. "Who dares to approach the council with such primitive toys?" The ships landed in the docking bays with loud crashes and hissing sounds. The other species used silent energy fields to land their ships smoothly. But these newcomers seemed to barely control their crude machines. From the ships came creatures that walked on 2 legs like some of the other species. Soft and weak. They had no natural armor, no glowing energy fields around them, and no visible weapons. They wore simple gray suits that looked like basic protection against space. One of them stepped forward. She was smaller than most of the aliens in the room, with dark hair and eyes that seemed curious rather than afraid. Her name was Kim Hannah, though none of the council members cared to learn it yet. "Honored members of the Galactic Council," she said in a clear voice, "I am Ambassador Kim Hannah of the species called humans. We come from the 3rd planet of a yellow star in what you call Sector 7G. We have recently discovered faster-than-light travel and wish to join the galactic community in peace and friendship."
Ow.
The room fell silent for a moment, then erupted, in sounds that humans would later learn were alien laughter. The Krellian general stood up, his massive form towering over everyone. "Soft flesh creatures with fire ships? How did you even survive the journey here? Your vessels look ready to fall apart." Our Vorthok's thought voice was full of amusement. "Their minds are so simple and chaotic. They think in straight lines like children. They have no mental discipline at all." One of the ancient Zephyri finally spoke, its voice sounding like wind through crystals. "Young species should crawl before they attempt to walk among the stars." Kim Hannah stood quietly through all the mockery. She had expected this reaction. Earth scientists had studied the alien signals they had detected for years before making contact. They knew they were the newcomers in a galaxy full of ancient, powerful civilizations. "We understand that we are new to this community," she replied calmly. "We do not claim to have the wisdom of ages or the power to reshape reality, but we offer something different. We offer our willingness to learn, to work, and to contribute whatever we can. The council members whispered and communicated among themselves for several minutes. Finally, the Zephyr leader announced their decision. The species called humans will be granted provisional membership status, it said in a bored tone. This is the lowest level of membership, reserved for civilizations. Not yet ready for true galactic citizenship? You may observe our proceedings and engage in limited trade, but you will not participate in important decisions. Kim Hannah nodded respectfully, though inside she felt the sting of dismissal. We are grateful for this opportunity and will work to prove ourselves worthy of your trust. As the meeting continued with other business, the human delegation was shown to a small section in the back of the chamber where they could watch but not speak. The message was clear. They were welcome to look, but not to touch. None of the ancient species suspected that these primitive newcomers would soon change everything. 6 months had passed since humanity joined the Galactic Council, and those months had been harder than anyone on Earth had expected. The humans quickly learned that being the newest members meant getting the worst jobs in the galaxy. Every time human traders tried to sell their goods, alien buyers would look at them with amusement. How cute, they would say, examining human-made electronics or art. These primitive curiosities might make interesting decorations. The prices they offered were so low, the humans barely made enough to buy fuel for their ships. Human scientists tried to share their discoveries, but the advanced species just patted them on the head like children. Yes, very good for beginners, the Vorthok would say with their mind voices dripping with fake kindness. Perhaps in a few thousand years you will understand real science. The only jobs available to humans were the ones nobody else wanted. Cleaning waste from space stations, mining asteroids in dangerous areas where pirates attacked regularly, working as translators because humans were good with languages, which the aliens found amusing. Captain Lee Dongwu commanded a small fleet of human mining ships in the Outer Rim, where the asteroid belts were rich in minerals, but far from any help if trouble came. His crew of 30 humans worked alongside alien supervisors who treated them like clumsy servants. The Krellian overseer, a massive creature named Gorth, would stomp around the mining platform shouting orders. Stupid soft flesh. You hold the laser wrong? No wonder your kind builds ships that leak. The Vorthok supervisor, floating in its glowing pod, would constantly criticize human thinking. Your minds are so scattered. Focus on one task at a time. This is why you will never advance beyond basic mining work. But the humans had something that none of the alien species noticed. While the Krellians spent decades perfecting one type of weapon, and the Vorthok meditated for years to improve their telepathy by tiny amounts, humans learned fast and changed quickly. Park Min-ho was the chief engineer on Dongwu's flagship. When a piece of alien equipment broke down, instead of waiting for expensive replacement parts like the aliens did, he would take it apart and figure out how it worked. Then he would build something better, using spare parts from completely different machines. This is not how we do things, Gorth would grumble. You should follow proper procedures. But Minho's improvised repairs worked better than the original equipment, and they cost almost nothing to make. Choi So-young was the communications officer. The aliens had given humans basic translation software, but she discovered that by combining it with human music and art, she could communicate feelings and ideas that pure translation missed. Soon, even some of the alien workers were asking her to help them talk to other species. The real test came on a day that started like any other. The mining crews were working on a large asteroid rich in rare metals. The human ships were small and fast, darting between the rocks like birds, while the alien supervisors watched from their safe command stations. Then the sensors screamed with warning signals. "Devourers!" shouted the Krellian supervisor, his 4 arms frantically working his control panels.
Ow!
"Ships retreat immediately! Follow Emergency Protocol 77 Alpha!" The Devourers were every spacefarer's nightmare. They looked like giant black holes with tentacles, eating everything they touched and leaving nothing but empty space behind. For thousands of years, every species had learned the same response: run away fast and call for help. The alien supervisors began there. Evacuation procedures. Heavy shields powered up around their command stations. Escape pods prepared for launch. Long-range distress signals went out automatically. Human vessels retreat to safe distance immediately, ordered the Vorthok supervisor. This is not a situation for primitive minds to handle. But Captain Lee looked at his sensor readings and saw something the aliens missed. The Devourer was alone, separated from its usual pack. It was smaller than normal, and its energy readings showed it was already damaged from some previous fight. "Human ships, this is Lee," he said into his communicator. "We're not running, Captain. That goes against all protocols," protested the Krellian supervisor. "We don't have protocols yet," Lee replied calmly. "Mino, can you turn the mining lasers into weapons?" "Already working on it, sir," came the engineer's voice. "Give me 2 minutes." While the alien supervisors shouted orders for the humans to retreat, the human mining fleet did something nobody expected. They attacked Choi So-young, coordinated the ships with quick, sharp commands. Unlike the formal military language the aliens used, she spoke like she was directing a dance. "Blue team, hit it from the left while it's distracted. Red team, circle. Around, behind. Yellow team, be ready to catch it when it tries to escape." Minho had turned asteroid mining equipment into improvised weapons. Laser drills became cutting beams. Magnetic cargo lifters became tractor beams to hold the Devourer in place. Even the waste disposal systems became projectile launchers. The battle lasted only 10 minutes. When it was over, the Devourer lay dead, its dark energy fading into space. The alien supervisors stared in shock at their sensor readings. The impossible had happened. The primitive humans had killed a Devourer using mining equipment and tactics that broke every rule in the Galactic Military Handbook. For the first time since joining the galaxy, humans had done something that made the ancient species pay attention. News of the victory spread quickly through galactic communication networks. The species that had been laughing at humanity just 6 months ago were now asking serious questions. How had the newcomers succeeded where centuries of military science had failed? The news traveled faster than the fastest ships in the galaxy. Within hours, every major species knew about the impossible victory at the mining station. Humans had killed a Devourer using nothing but mining equipment and quick thinking at first. Many aliens refused to believe it. The Krellian High Command demanded to see the battle recordings 3 times. The Vorthok Council spent days analyzing the sensor data, convinced there must be some mistake. The ancient Zephyri simply stated that the reports were highly improbable. The evidence was clear. The Devourer was dead, and 30 humans and mining ships had done what entire fleets sometimes failed to accomplish. The Galactic Council called an emergency meeting. This time, the human delegation was not seated in the back corner. They were brought to the center of the Great Chamber, where everyone could see them clearly. Dr. Yoon Ji-hai stepped forward to address the council. She was humanity's chief scientist who studied alien life forms, and she had spent months preparing for this moment. Her simple, gray uniform looked plain next to the flowing robes and glowing armor of the other species, but her voice was steady and confident. "Honored council members," she began, "you have asked how we succeeded where others have failed. The answer is not what you might expect." The massive Krellian Warprime leaned forward in his metal chair. "Speak, human. What weapons did you use that we do not possess?" "No special weapons," Ji-hai replied. "Our mining lasers are weaker than your plasma cannons. Our ships are slower than your fastest scouts. Our armor is thinner than your lightest. Protection." A Vorthak's thought voice filled the chamber. "Then how? What secret knowledge do you possess?" Ji-hai activated a holographic display that showed the battle from different angles. "We succeeded because we had no choice but to adapt. Every species in this galaxy has had thousands of years to perfect their methods. The Krellians have developed the most powerful weapons possible. The Vorthok have achieved perfect mental discipline. The Zephyri have mastered ancient technologies beyond our understanding." The aliens nodded proudly at these descriptions. Ji-hai continued, "This perfection has also made you rigid. When you encounter a Devourer, you follow the same procedures your ancestors used for millennia. You have one response to each threat, and you stick to it no matter what. The chamber grew quiet. Several species began to look uncomfortable. Humans arrived at this party very late, Jihai said with a slight smile. We have no ancient wisdom to guide us, no perfect weapons to rely on, no established procedures to follow. When we face a problem, we have to think of new solutions every time. The Krellian War Prime slammed his fists on his desk. You call our proven methods weakness? Our tactics have kept the galaxy safe for thousands of years. Our tactics work against known threats, Jihai agreed. But the Devourers are evolving. They learn from each encounter, just like we do. The difference is that you fight them the same way every time, while we had to invent new ways to fight just to survive. The implications of her words spread through the chamber like ripples in water. If the humans were right, then the galaxy's greatest strength, its accumulated wisdom and perfect techniques, this might also be its greatest weakness. The Krellian War Prime stood up, his massive form casting shadows across the chamber. If you think your chaos is superior to our discipline, then prove it. One challenge humanity to formal combat trials. Let us see if your improvisation can stand against real military power. The challenge was broadcast across the galaxy.
Aliens
of beings watched as the trials were announced. The mighty Krellian war machine against the primitive humans who had somehow killed a devourer. The combat arena was built on a neutral moon, with obstacles and hazards that would test both strategy and adaptability. The Krellians brought their best warriors in the most advanced combat suits the galaxy had ever seen. Each suit was worth more than an entire human mining fleet. Lieutenant Kong Sujin led the human team into the arena. Her squad wore simple armor that looked like toys compared to the Krellian warsuits. They carried basic weapons that seemed pathetic next to the plasma cannons that could melt through starship hulls. The galaxy watched as the two forces faced each other. The Krellian War Prime activated his suit systems, and energy shields flared around him like a personal sun. His weapons powered up with sounds like thunder. Surrender now, soft flesh. His voice boomed across the arena. There's no shame in recognizing superior force. Sujin smiled and activated her communicator. All units, remember what we practiced. They're big, they're strong, and they're predictable. Use that against them. The battle began with the Krellians advancing in perfect formation, their plasma cannons lighting up the arena like a thunderstorm. It was exactly what the humans expected. Instead of meeting force with force, the human team scattered like leaves. In the wind, they used the arena's obstacles for cover, moving in patterns that seemed random but were actually carefully planned. Technical Sergeant Begin Wu crawled through maintenance tunnels that were too small for the massive Krellian suits. While the War Prime searched for enemies to fight directly, Jinwoo reached the arena's power systems. Hey, big guy. Sujin's voice came over the arena's communication system. Catch this. Ginwoo activated a simple electromagnetic pulse device he had built from arena maintenance equipment. The pulse shut down the War Prime suit completely, leaving him standing motionless in several tons of dead metal. The arena fell silent. The mighty Krellian warrior, unbeatable for 5,000 years, had been defeated by a human with spare parts and clever thinking. The age of human influence in the galaxy had begun. The victory in the arena changed everything. Within weeks, species that had ignored humans for months were suddenly very interested in talking to them. Trade deals that had been rejected were reconsidered. Invitations to meetings that had never come before began arriving daily, but the biggest change happened in the Galactic Defense Force. The military organization that protected all the civilized worlds from threats like the Deveros. Admiral Han Su-ben became the first human ever appointed to a senior position in the Defense Force. She was a small woman with short black hair and calm eyes that missed nothing. When she walked into the massive military headquarters on the fortress world of Aegis Prime, many aliens stared at her with curiosity and doubt. The previous commanders had been either massive Krellians or ancient Zephyri, who had led battles for thousands of years. Han Su-ben looked like she should be commanding a single ship, not helping to defend the entire galaxy. General Thorak, the Krellian Supreme Commander, towered over her like a metal mountain. So you are the human who thinks she can improve our Military methods. Our strategies have protected the galaxy for 50 centuries. What could your infant species possibly teach us? Han Su-Ben looked up at him calmly. General, how many battles have you won using exactly the same tactics your great-grandfather used? All of them, Thurok replied proudly. Krellian battle doctrine is perfect. We do not change what works. And how many of those battles were against enemies who also fought exactly the same way their ancestors did? The general paused, thinking. It was true that most galactic conflicts followed predictable patterns. Species fought each other using methods that had been established for millennia. Han Su-Ben activated a holographic display showing recent battle reports. The Devourers are different. They adapt after every encounter. Each time you fight them with the same tactics, they learn how to counter those tactics better. That's why they're getting stronger, while we're getting weaker. She began implementing changes that shocked the military establishment. Instead of keeping each species in separate units, as had always been done, she created mixed teams. Krellian warriors worked alongside Vorthok telepaths. Zephyr technology specialists partnered with human engineers. This is chaos, complained Commander Vexstar of the Zephyr forces. Each species has its own way of fighting. Mixing them together will create confusion and disorder. Maybe Han Su-Ben agreed, but it will also create something the Devourers have never seen before. They've studied how each of our species fights alone. They don't know how we fight together. The most controversial change was what Han Su-Ben called failure protocols. Instead of punishing commanders who lost battles, she required them to write detailed reports about what went wrong and what they learned. This horrified the traditional military leaders. In Krellian culture, losing a battle was the ultimate shame. Vorthok commanders who failed were stripped of their telepathic ranks. The Zephyr simply removed failed leaders from history entirely. You want us to celebrate defeat? General Thurok asked, his voice full of disgust. Want you to learn from it, Han Su-Ben replied. Every failure teaches us something new. Every mistake shows us a weakness we didn't know we had. The Devourers learn from their failures. If we don't do the same, they'll always stay ahead of us. The real test of these new methods came sooner than anyone expected. Long-range sensors detected something that made every military commander in the galaxy wake up in cold fear. The Devourers were mounting their largest assault in recorded history. 3 separate fleets were moving toward the core world simultaneously, each one larger than any previous attack. Under the old system, each threatened world would defend itself using its own species' traditional methods. Krellians would build massive fortifications and meet the enemy head-on. The Vorthok would use their telepathic networks to coordinate perfect defensive positions. The Zephyr would activate ancient weapons that bent space and time. Han Su-Ben proposed something that had never been tried before, a coordinated counterattack using all 3 methods at the same time. With mixed species battle groups that could adapt their tactics based on what they encountered. Impossible, declared General Thurok. Krellian warriors cannot fight effectively alongside Vorthok mind readers. Our methods are completely different. That's exactly why it will work, Han Su-Ben replied. The Devourers know how to fight Krellians. They know how to fight Vorthok. They don't know how to fight both at the same time. Commander O'Jamin was assigned to lead the first mixed battle group. His unit combined Vorthok telepaths with human psychologists who had studied the Devourer behavior patterns. Working together, they discovered that the creatures communicated through quantum entanglement networks that could be disrupted if you knew the right frequencies. Captain Nam Hyjin commanded Krellian war machines that were guided by human tactical flexibility protocols instead of rigid battle formations. Her forces moved in unpredictable patterns that confused the Devourers, who had learned to predict Krellian movements perfectly. Major Lim Teho worked with the Zephyr to enhance their reality-bending weapons using human engineering principles that focused on adaptation rather than perfection. The results were weapons that could change their effects in the middle of battle as the 3 counterattack fleets prepared to launch. Every species in the galaxy watched nervously. This was either going to be the greatest military victory in galactic history or the most spectacular failure. For the first time ever, All the major species would fight not as separate armies following their own ancient ways, but as one united force that could learn, adapt, and change during battle. The fate of the galaxy depended on whether this crazy human idea would actually work. The largest military fleet in galactic history assembled at the edge of known space. Ships from dozens of species formed 3 massive battle groups, each one heading toward a different devourer swarm. For the first time ever, ancient enemies worked side by side under a single command structure. Admiral Han Suben stood on the bridge of the flagship Unity's edge, watching the deployment screens with quiet concentration. Around her, officers from different species worked at stations designed for multiple types of beings. A Krellian weapons specialist sat next to a Vorthok telepathic coordinator, while Zephyr technology masters worked alongside human engineers. All battle groups report ready, announced Communications Officer Park Dae-yoon. Her voice was steady, but everyone could feel the tension in the air. The Devourers had never faced anything like this before. Neither had the galaxy's defenders. Commander Judong Hyen led Battle Group Alpha toward the largest Devourer swarm. His mixed unit was an experiment that many thought would fail. Vorthok telepaths tried to read the Devourers' intentions, while human analysts used computers to predict their movements. Instead of fighting each other for control, the 2 methods worked together in ways no one had expected. The Devourers are changing formation, reported telepathic coordinator Velanathi, her mind voice calm, despite the approaching danger. They sense our telepathic probes and are adapting to block them. That's what we expected, replied human analyst Kim Tae-young, his fingers flying over his computer controls. But while they're focusing on blocking telepathy, they're not paying attention to our electronic sensors. I can track their real positions. Combination gave them an advantage neither species could have achieved alone. The Vorthok could sense the Devourer's intentions, while the humans could track their actual movements. Together, they could predict what the enemy would do and where they would really be. Captain Song Aran commanded the Krellian heavy assault ships in Battle Group Beta. Traditionally, Krellian forces advanced in perfect straight lines, overwhelming enemies with superior firepower. But now they moved in patterns that seemed random but were actually carefully planned. Devourer formation is breaking apart, reported her Krellian gunner. They cannot predict our next movement. That's because we're not following any ancient battle plan, Song Aran replied with a smile. We're making it up as we go. The Devourers had learned to counter every traditional Krellian tactic over thousands of years of conflict, but they had never seen Krellian warriors who changed their methods every few minutes based on what was happening in battle. Meanwhile, Major Kim Woo-jin led the most dangerous mission of all. His team had to reach the central Devourer hive and plant charges that would cause it to collapse. The mission required passing through dimensional gates created by Zephyr technology. Guided by Vorthok telepaths, protected by Krellian weapons, and coordinated by human-designed AI systems. Dimensional gate is stable, reported Zephyr gatekeeper Athmarain, his ancient voice echoing strangely through the ship's communication system. Telepathic path is clear, added Vorthok navigator Zekthal. Krellian escort ships are in position, confirmed the weapon systems. Human coordination AI shows optimal timing in 30 seconds, announced engineer on Min-G. No single species could have accomplished this mission alone. The Zephyr could create the gates, but they couldn't navigate the chaotic space around. A Devourer hive. A Vorthok could guide them telepathically, but they needed protection from the Devourer's mind-disrupting attacks. The Krellians could provide firepower. They needed precise timing to avoid destroying the very gates they were protecting. Only by working together could they do the impossible. The battles raged for hours, across 3 different star systems. Each time the Devourers adapted to one tactic, the mixed battle groups switched to something completely different. When the enemy learned to counter Krellian firepower, the defenders switched to Vorthok telepathic attacks. When the Devourers blocked telepathy, human computers took over the coordination. They're learning faster than ever before, reported Dr. Yoon Ji-hai from the science station. But we're learning faster too. That was the key difference. The Devourers could adapt to any single fighting style given enough time, but they couldn't adapt to fighting styles that changed constantly and unpredictably. Major Kim Woo-jin's team reached the central hive just as the structure began to pulse with dangerous energy. The Devourers were preparing to release some kind of super weapon that could destroy entire planets. "Charges are set," reported engineer on Minji. "But the hive is adapting to our explosives. The charges might not be powerful enough." "Then we improvise," Kim Woo-jin replied. He activated his communicator to reach all the battle groups. "All units, focus fire on the hive structure in 10 seconds. Hit it with everything you have." The combined firepower of 3 battle groups struck the hive at the exact moment Minji's charges exploded. Krellian plasma cannons, Vorthok telepathic force, Zephyr, reality-warping weapons, Zephyr-modified explosives, all hit the same target simultaneously. The hive collapsed in a cascade of dark energy that lit up 3 star systems. The remaining Devourers suddenly cut off from their central command, scattered into the deep space between galaxies. The victory celebration lasted for days, but the real change was deeper than any single battle. The galaxy had learned something that would change everything. Working together was better than fighting alone. Admiral Han Su-ben stood before the new Galactic Council, where species were no longer ranked by age or power, but by what they contributed. To the common good, humanity had arrived last at the galactic community. But they had been first to win something more valuable than any battle: the right to help build a better future for everyone.